People feel very differently. And even centrists like Jake Tapper in his book with Alex Thompson readily acknowledge that 2016 was rigged, that there was a call that went out that had all the candidates drop out after Biden had failed to win the first four contests.
She's not wrong about them having this split the Senate. But do you know who made the Republicans split the Senate right vote? MAGA. And they ended up better off for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, friends, people I don't even like. Welcome to Pinhead Politics. I gotta say, I really don't like liberals. I do my best to be patient with liberals. I do my best to walk out all conversations to their logical conclusion with liberals. I try to spend hours talking to them in the most calm, level-headed way that I can. But when I come across people like this, it drives me fucking insane. When I come across people like Natalie Wynn, aka ContraPoints, it infuriates me. They play this victimhood mentality thing like the left just wants to attack them all day when we could care fucking less about them. And at the end of the day, I think what it really ends up being is that we really want them to just get out of our way. That plus, stop looking at us like we're the problem, right? Incrementalism, milquetoast Democrats, those, in my opinion, are ultimately the problem. But she has a conversation with Brianna Joy Gray, one of our best, one of our brightest. I want to get into checking out the video. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So I'm here with Natalie Wynn, aka ContraPoints, who is one of the biggest and most prolific and I think most efficacious video essayists on the left in BreadTube. I don't know if you embrace that term, but it's really nice to be. You condemn the term BreadTube. Why is that?
Well, I had never thought it made any sense. Like, I mean, the phrase "breadtube" is a reference to the conquest of bread, an anarchist book. I'm not an anarchist. I don't know why this like framing has been imposed on, but you know, it is what it is. You don't get to choose these things.
How do you identify politically?
I identify as like a left liberal at this stage, is how I would describe myself. I would say that I'm aligned with like the left wing of the Democratic Party, like AO.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This is gonna be hard for me. I'm not even gonna lie. We're gonna get through some points that and some timestamps that I got and some notes. But I'm not even gonna lie. Just her voice irritates the shit out of me, and I'm really trying my hardest to not just talk over every part of this video. But I want to point out, she is what we would consider the typical milquetoast liberal, the type of person who's into politics because they care about what's going to necessarily happen to them and their community. But for the most part, they just really want to go about their day, get their freaking latte, go to work, live their life, and not necessarily have to even think about poor people, as far as I'm concerned. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, she admits, I think she's relatively new to this. I mean, you'll notice throughout the video, she takes a lot of time moving the goalpost and or coming back to the main point, which she doesn't understand. But we'll get into that.
AOC kind of politics.
Well, AOC, at least at one point in her life, self-described as a socialist or a democratic socialist.
That's
least,
right.
Did she not?
Yes, that's right.
Would you define yourself that way as well?
I think I would at one time also have. I think now I would say I'm probably more of a social democrat. But for me, my attitude towards politics is very not, well, it's very non-philosophical in a way, because I feel that I react to the situation that I'm in. So I think that, you know, am I a social democrat in the sense that I think capitalism is like this amazing system? Like, no, not really. I just think that social democracy is like the most plausible path to improving what we have. If I like found myself in, I don't know, a Stalinist country, I probably would not be advocating capitalist revolution. I would be advocating like, well, I don't know, some kind of like Dengist reforms or something.
So, I mean, from my perspective, as someone who's obviously been a witness to some of the backlash and
So right out the gate, you notice that she doesn't really have any serious ideology. It's kind of as if she's just going off of vibes. You see what I'm saying? Like she said, well, if I was in Stalinist Russia, I would, my politics would be one way. I really try to be patient with that kind of voter, because a lot of us have a lot more skin in the game. And a lot of us actually have been caring about this issue for quite a while. So when somebody like this walks into the space, it's frustrating to say the least.
and at least your career over the last 5 or 6 years, when I've been more plugged into the online left, it does feel sometimes like some of the pushback you get is because there's a gap in your perceived sort of identification or self-identification, at least at one point, in some of the political stances that you take maybe in a post 2020 world. Does that feel right to you?
Yeah, I do think there is like a definite proportion of the backlash that I receive that's based on a kind of misreading of me as being sort of having always been more radical than I really was. I mean, I think that part of it is like the aesthetic of because I
Now, I don't know about y'all, but I never knew who this person was. Like, apparently she's huge on YouTube. But when you go to her page, and there's like 39 something videos, which means to me, it just kind of tells me, like, and just by looking at her, like, I'm not her audience. I don't even think I've ever even been suggested her video.
I started out doing, I'm like this like transgender YouTuber who is making videos about how fascism is bad. This is very like communist coded behavior, at least in like internet culture, right? Like if you're a trans person on the internet, you're complaining about Nazis all day, you're probably a communist, right? And that's true. You are probably a communist if you fit that description. I mean, I think that I kind of did have a more so I mean I used to be quite centrist in that like in 2016 I think I was like a Hillary Clinton supporter in the 2016 primary for the reason that I thought that she was more viable than Bernie Sanders. Then she lost. And I think that did prompt me to rethink a little bit what was possible, combined with the fact that Donald Trump at the time seemed like this kind of crackpot candidate who how could a serious country elect a person like this, right?
Anybody that thought that Hillary Clinton was a better candidate than Bernie Sanders in that primary, the 2016 primary, you were not paying attention to politics close enough. You wasn't.
Well,
You really, really weren't. There was so much that Hillary missed that Bernie was able to capitalize on by ways of messaging, policy, all the things that he just he was a hurricane when he came through. There's no way. The only reason why you would have even thought that is if you were like what she said was a centrist Democrat. Move on, because we got a lot of points to hit. Here we go. Like 1, take 2, way back in the bayou round fishing town.
well, jokes on me. But like I think
Yeah.
that did make me open minded to like, well, like maybe like it is time to consider because I had I had campaigned for Obama in 2012, and so my experience was like talking to these like median voters in like Ashburn, Virginia or whatever, and like
People feel very differently. And even centrists like Jake Tapper in his book with Alex Thompson readily acknowledge that 2016 was rigged, that there was a call that went out that had all the candidates drop out after Biden had failed to win the first 4 contests and circle the wagons around South Carolina. That, of course, there was $70 million of free media that Biden got after winning South Carolina, that they then changed the order of the primary contest so that a pro-Biden state could go early enough so that they wouldn't have to do quite the same level of machination. But that, again, you had a mass dropping out and coalescing behind a candidate in order to make it seem as though there's an inevitability there with Joe Biden that there simply wasn't. Sorry, I told kind of 2 stories at the same time with 2016 and 2020. But, that was a 2020 story. And in 2016, It was a much more acute. In the Democratic Party, of course, the DNC admitted that they were entitled to and did, in fact, put their finger on the scale in favor of Hillary Clinton. So it does beg the question, by some accounts, and I don't expect you to, agree with this, but I do have to just put out there, by some accounts, we haven't had a real primary since 2008.
I see rigging as too strong a word for what you're describing. I think that, yes, Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton some advantage was given to them by having this built-up institutional support within the party. But I also think that, but in 2020, when you say that, okay, there's this sort of conspiracy of candidates to all drop out, except for Biden, giving him this advantage that he wouldn't otherwise have had against Bernie Sanders. Yes, but I feel like that also contains a tacit admission that the only way for Bernie Sanders to have won would be to split the center-left vote.
Oh, I agree. So I think that
she's not wrong about them having to split the center-left vote. But do you know who made the Republicans split the center-right vote? MAGA. And they ended up better off for it. Now, it's interesting to me that this woman has an issue with the framing of how she's calling it rigging, which it ultimately is. I don't like the framing either, but what are you going to do? What do you call it when somebody deliberately takes away your ability to participate in the primary or not make your vote count when you do participate in the primary? Right? How does that make sense? So she has an issue with the framing, but she doesn't have an issue with the fact that the Democrats literally took the nomination potentially from Bernie Sanders twice. It's ass backwards.
Israel's genocide. But the bigger point I would say is this. I can readily concede that there are many ways in which Trump is worse than Biden, obviously, and that Republicans generally are worse than Democrats. I think the question, people in who share my politics have the feeling that one party being worse than the other is an insufficient reason to vote for the lesser of two evils, when there is enormous latitude for the better party to simply stop being evil. And that the big trick of liberalism is convincing folks that you have to be at least a little bit evil in order to win, even when the opposite is true.
Correct. It is unimaginative. It is ridiculous, immature and childish to think that we just can't rise to the angels of our better nature and be better fucking people.
When supporting Medicare for all makes you more electable, even when supporting Palestinian rights makes you more electable, Democrats are making choices not, in fact, based on electability, but based on what their corporate donor base wants them to do.
Correct.
And if we ever want both parties to stop slipping more and more in that direction, and for there to be any red lines in the sand, even over something as cataclysmic as a genocide, somebody has to say, you have to earn my vote at some point in this. So I would turn your question to me back around to you. On what timeline, at what point, is there ever going to be a litmus test among liberal Democratic voters that says this is a kind of evil that I will not succumb to, that I will not support with my vote?
I mean, I see the place to litigate that is in a primary, and I understand the frustration with not having a primary in 2024. Right. But that is the way this ought to work, and the way I expect it to.
The way it ought to work, and the way it's working, is not simpatico. It's not happening that way.
Work in 2028. But I think
Do you?
2028.
You're going to have a fair
Yeah.
primary in 2028?
I think so. I mean, so I guess I'm not as
Look at Brianna's face, bro. This is the moment she realized that this bitch doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, she doesn't. You know, I only have one criticism of the amazing Brianna Joy Gray, is that she gives these fucking goobahs way too much credit and clout. That's really about it. Other than that, she does everything perfect. But like her Vaush interview, this one, like the way she just gives them this credibility when they clearly don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and she's so graceful about it. She's so sweet about it. She's so nice about it that she doesn't just cook them in real time. Cause like, look at that face, bro. I'm not like, look at that. She like, bitch, are you new here? Like, bro, I don't even know how she sat through it. Like, everybody who I talked to about this interview, all of them said the same thing. Like, this was painful to watch, because from a person who's on the left who's so popular, it's insane that she's so vapid of substantive information at that.
again. I think I'm not as impressed as you are by the claim of rigging, which I feel like is a somewhat exaggerated claim for a institutionally backed candidate having a advantage. I mean, I think that I also feel like there's some tension between. So you're saying that you don't think that third party voters or abstaining progressives are the reason why Kamala Harris lost. So in what sense is then Gaza the issue? Because again, it's like if you look at the map, it looks, and if you look at, how many votes Jill Stein got, less than 1%, versus the like significant electoral college and popular vote victory of Donald Trump, it looks like voters shifted to the right, in other words. And so
Why do you say that?
Well, because
On what?
because Kamala Harris didn't lose to a huge amount of voters turning third party. She lost to people turning to Donald Trump.
And people staying home. So take the Muslim vote, for example.
Correct.
I think about 50% of Muslim Americans voted Republican and the other half voted Green.
Yes.
Because of Gaza,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So, you can sit here and have.
There's your election. There could be election right there. Right? Kamala Harris lost not because Trump was so insanely popular. Is that the Democrats are so insanely unpopular, and that nobody came out to vote. Trump got effectively the same amount of votes he got last time. Except for this time, nobody wanted to vote for the person that was just going to keep shit the same. What for? It's not getting us anywhere. I am in my 40s. This has been going on. This incrementalism has been going on for so long that they have been priming the political arena for somebody like Trump, and he showed up.
Have a debate about the wisdom of voting for Donald Trump when he was going to be worse. But when I say it's not on the voters, it's because there is enormous latitude for Kamala Harris to simply say, you know what, there's a genocide, you're right. Benjamin Netanyahu is unpopular. His government is unpopular even within Israel. I stand with, I will not support sending weapons and arms to Israel. Ceasefire now. And she could have won, right? So why not?
For that to be true, doesn't it have to be the case that she lost the election because of protest voters or abstainers, as opposed to what I'm trying to argue is that, one, Jill Stein voters, as you
Yes, that's definitely part of it.
point out, are not the ones. But people who chose to stay home or vote for Trump, absolutely. Okay. I mean, definitionally, you lose because some quantity of voters that voted for your team before either stayed home or went to the other side. And my argument is that those voters could easily have been kept in the pen. Now, to be clear, my personal politics are, I don't think they should go back to the Democratic Party. I don't think anybody should go back to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But if I'm a Democratic strategist, if I'm Kamala Harris, I don't get to argue that I was entitled to those votes that I easily could have gotten by simply changing my position to a more populist one. It's almost akin to saying, if I'm Kamala Harris and I come out on stage and decide to say, I hate everybody who lives west of the Mississippi. If you live west of the Mississippi, I do not want you to vote for me. If you live west of the Mississippi, we're going to bomb you and kill you. And then election day comes and she's like, gosh, man, it's really unfair that I lost the election because I antagonized everybody west of the Mississippi. Like, it was the electable position for her to take, and she declined to take it. So at what point do we hold politicians accountable for choosing to throw an election rather than to modify America's relationship with a genocidal country?
So I think there's two questions here, right? Like one is whose fault is it that she lost? Kind of a descriptive question. And then the other is, should we have advocated that she lose? A more of a normative question. So like the descriptive question, like I think the blame for why an election turns out the way it does is always going to be widely distributed, right? And like, of course, some fault is on Biden and on Kamala Harris. Like, I do think that, like, yeah, I would agree with the criticism that the Biden administration failed they did not have the agility to respond to the situation in Gaza by breaking from, like, decades of bipartisan consensus that Israel's our closest ally and blah, 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 right? Like, they did not have the agility to read the situation and change. Like, I agree with that.
What do you mean they didn't have the agility?
I mean that they acted in a way that was consistent with how American foreign policy has been for decades, as opposed to recognizing
so she ain't really saying much but a bunch of word salad, nothing. She's gonna go on to pontificate like that and just kind of talk in circles until we have to go on to something else because she's not saying shit. So we're gonna move on.
On issue for Biden 2020 voters that didn't want to vote for Kamala 2024 and didn't vote for Kamala in 2024 was ending Israel's violence in Gaza at 29%, followed by the economy, 24%, Medicare and Social Security at 12%, immigration at 11%, healthcare at 10%, and on down the line. So if they release that, the idea is, I'm sorry, I want just to put a fine point on it. The idea is that if the Democratic Party acknowledges and releases that they knew that was the case, then suddenly the onus is very clear, right? Who has the responsibility for losing to Trump is very clear. And the contrast that I think is my mission as a podcaster and a political commentator to demonstrate who the Democratic Party really is and what their priorities really are becomes very obvious to everyone. And I think you do start to get a lot of defections from the party, or at least calls for an enormous overhaul of leadership, et cetera.
Well, so I want them to release the autopsy. I want them to do whatever it takes to get elected. If that means cutting off all aid to Israel, then they should do that. I mean, I think it probably, in reality, is likely wrapped up with a bunch of other issues, like the fact that voters are upset about inflation, or about like vague concerns about like maybe my child might encounter a transgender book in schools, and the Democrats are supposed to do something about that.
That wasn't on the list, by the way. That isn't on this IMEU list at the very least. Nothing.
Well, I hope it's not.
Nothing cultural. Abortion policy was number 9, and at 9%, and I don't know was 5%. But nothing about transports, nothing about COVID. A lot of issues that I think folks thought were going to be determinative weren't, at least among these Biden 2020 to Harris 2024 voters.
But can you see how it's like a little bit difficult for me to take your criticisms of what you think the Democrats ought to do to get elected when you're simultaneously saying that people should not elect them? Like, your position is that people should divest from the Democratic Party. So because it's not in your interest for the Democrats to get elected based on your positions, right? You don't want them to win.
What do you mean?
Well, you don't want the Democrats to win, right?
I think in an ideal world, given how hard it's going to be and how hard it already is for so many people, in an ideal world, I mean, I worked for Bernie for this reason. In an ideal world, a social democrat like Bernie Sanders gets elected. We get universal health care, a basic social democrat safety net, free education, and, our little, capitalist kingdom gets to tip along for another 100 years and save a lot of people from immiseration. I think that's what I was working for, along with so many other people in 2020 But what I learned was how unlikely that is. What I learned from experience. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, your current position though is that people should divest from the Democratic Party. Isn't this? isn't this sort of an energetic drain at minimum on the enthusiasm that it takes to be able to win elections?
How so?
Well, I mean, it seems that you're using your platform.
I'm really trying not to just chime in every 5 seconds, but I got to be honest with you. Listen, we don't want the bullshit anymore. Bernie and the opportunity to have Bernie was beyond something special. Like we could have had, like Brianna said, we could have tiptoed along, with our democracy for the next 100 years. Seriously, a serious social safety net, Medicare for all. People don't have to be miserable and worry about things like childcare and all this other crazy stuff, because he would have made sure it had been codified into law, especially if he would have been able to do the things that Trump does now, right? We're just assuming all things considered equal and everything's great. We get those things. But for her, she's saying, well, listen, yeah, we didn't get those things, but why would we why would we divest from the Democrats? Why wouldn't we fight harder so that we could try to get Bernie again one day? Because the Democrats rigged it. The Democrats fucked them over. That's why.
To encourage people to abstain or to vote third party or to sort of in general just give up on the Democrats. Doesn't that, like, my experience is that in 2024 it was very difficult to advocate for Kamala Harris in public with a leftist audience because of
the genocide
extreme
Genocide.
push,
Yeah.
the genocide allegations, yes, that you would then be accused of. I feel like
Allegations.
I guess I don't see voting as like a symbolic expression of my like virtuous stance on any particular issue so much as I do like a consequentialist calculation about like what is
Me
the
too.
actual effect of this, and the
Me too.
actual effect of electing Donald Trump has been disastrous.
Yes, and the actual effect of voting blue no matter who means that we get more right-wing presidents every time, both on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. And the only way to curb that ratchet effect would be to say, hey, Democrats, you absolutely can get my vote. My vote is absolutely gettable. And it's not because I'm asking for some crazy demand that's going to cause you to lose 3 other votes somewhere else. It's only upside. I have a plan for you, Democrats. Here's how you win. You oppose the genocide, you call it a genocide, and you say you're going to stop funding the genocide and follow American law, the Leahy law, which prohibits me from funding these war crimes to begin with. And you can win. How can you argue against that?
Because people have been making this argument my entire life. I mean, people argue
What
this
argument?
about Ralph
Right.
Nader in year 2000. Like
What argument is that?
the argument that
Yo, Brianna is eating this broad alive, and she knows it, because it's like, what argument what are you talking about? Because Brianna has just laid out something very, 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 very specific, and nobody has been making that argument. She cannot steel man Brianna's argument and say it back to her, because she's not really paying attention. Because for her, this shit is just about vibes. For her, she just wants her life to be better. I wouldn't be surprised at all if she cared, if she she couldn't care less about anybody else other than herself and her particular life. Yeah, and that she cares about human rights because she's trans, and it behooves anybody who would be trans or a person who has a trans member in their family to want to naturally be on the side of human rights. But she really don't care. She blew up on the internet probably by accident. She's definitely on the left by accident, but she blew up on the internet, and now she's stuck in this position where she has to defend herself.
by voting third party, there's an opportunity to meaningfully shift the Democrats.
but
to force
that
them
wasn't
to
what I
ta-
just said, right?
to move
Correct.
left. Well, what did
I
you
just
say?
said is, hey, I'm a Democrat. This is what I was advocating for Democrats. If you want to be me, great. But if you're a Democrat, my argument is to say, and this is what the uncommitted movement was saying, my vote is up on offer. I want to give you my vote. I want to stop Trump. I want to give you my vote. And all you have to do is do this thing, which is going to make you more popular and more electable. And the Democrats said, no, I would rather lose
Correct.
than incur the wrath of my APAC donors
what's confusing?
or whatever else is at the root of our entanglement with Israel as a country. our
But
military base that is the state of Israel.
But in order for this like blackmail message to be effective, like doesn't it have to be the case that third party voters are the determining factor in swinging the election, which you just said that
Well,
they are
not
not?
third party voters.
Like,
People who decline to vote for Kamala Harris are not third party voters.
Do the protest voters have the leverage to be taking the election hostage in this way?
Well, they quite obviously did, and that's why they don't want to release, arguably, the autopsy report. Right? They quite obviously did. And if that becomes okay, sure. But what's not speculation is that we know that 29% of people who didn't vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, but who did vote for Biden in 2020, said that ending Israel's violence in Gaza was the reason. Right?
Hello.
So if you're the Democrats and you have this option, a part of me wants to open one of these books and rifle through, because I remember at some point in, I can't remember if it's Original Sin or on 107 Days. I think it's Original Sin. There was reporting, and there's been ample reporting at this point, 2 years out, that internally, Biden understood. They understood how much this issue was hurting them. And they chose to ignore it. In fact, they chose to double down on it.
Yeah. What's your
right?
response?
And I don't understand, at some point, Natalie, at some point, I mean, is there anything that Democrats would
defend that? Liberals defend it.
Do that you would say, if Donald Trump, if the 2016 version of Donald Trump were running against the 2024 Donald Trump on the Democratic ticket, would you say that we should vote for 2016 Donald Trump because his first term was better than his second term?
Okay, I mean, so I joke about how I would vote for Satan to stop Donald Trump. There probably is a line. I've yet not found it yet of what moral depths to which I would stoop to stop Donald Trump.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so play that out for me. Everyone always asking me to play out my plan. Play out the consequences of vote blue no matter who, because you and others, I don't mean to put it all on you, but ask me what the timeline is. I got to this place because I started asking more centrist oriented people what the timeline is for Medicare for all. How long are we supposed to deal with the fact that 68,000 people die every year from a lack of health insurance? What's the timeline on that? And I had people come to me who were Medicare for All activists in the state of California, who were Bernie's Medicare for All czar, and their plans were minimum 20-year time horizons, saying that, well, they're
20 years, bro? Bernie will only get 8 years max. Your plan is 20 years? Centrist Democrats? What the holy fuck?
The argument that was made to me was Gavin Newsom was going to get Medicare for all in the state of California, that he was going to become president, and that he was then going to bring Medicare for all to the entire country. Gavin Newsom doesn't even support Medicare for all anymore.
Correct.
Obviously. Mm-hmm. And the state of California, with its overwhelmingly Democratic legislature, has intentionally scuttled their CalCare program now multiple times, including just recently. So at a certain point, I mean, let me maybe ask it this way, Natalie.
She's been trying so hard to get this girl to understand the damn point. She's not going to get it.
How much do you think that donor influence and corporate interests are determining the policies of the Democratic Party?
Well, they certainly have some effect. I think I maybe don't think they have quite the level of effect that you do, because yes, they have some effect, but they also, at the end of the day, do still need to get elected. Right. So I don't think there's an infinite capacity for corporate influence. There's a limit to how far you can push it where people will stop supporting you.
This is kind of my point, that we saw that limit with Gaza and they didn't care. Right.
Democrats have tried over the years to Obama came fairly with the Affordable Care Act, they came fairly close to getting not Medicare for all, but a single payer option.
Well, Natalie,
fairly close.
But they
being shot down by Joe Lieberman.
Okay, but why is it, Natalie? We know how slim the Republicans' margins are right now, right?
Yeah.
And yet they managed to do everything in the world. Why is it that Barack Obama had a supermajority? When we say it was scuttled by Joe Lieberman, we're saying that he was the 60th vote in a supermajority.
Yes.
And why is it that it seems to be the case that Democrats are always 1 or 2 votes shy from doing the thing that 75% of the country wants them to do. But Republicans always manage to push through the thing that only 20% of the country wants them to do.
Well, do you think that, do you really think that Nancy Pelosi, for example, didn't want single payer, like I think that she did.
Yes.
Like I think that this genuinely
I
was.
don't.
You don't think that she did?
I don't. I don't think that Democratic leadership, Nancy Pelosi, whomever, I don't think that Democratic Party leadership wants single payer. Absolutely not.
I don't think
No.
that's supported by Nancy Pelosi's actions in 2010.
How so?
I mean, I would have to, we'd have
She
to fact check
don't
this
know.
after the fact, but
Did
I seem to
Nancy
recall her
Pelosi
making
support-
a fairly strong effort to achieve this, and eventually needing to create a compromise option in
this
order
shit-
to get Joe Lieberman.
Yo, I'm not even like, this is so, like, she's so uninformed. It is pathetic. Like, literally, look at Brianna's face this entire interview. And I swear to God, every time Brianna goes, how so? I'm almost positive it's because she knows she got this bitch and like she doesn't know what she's talking about.
On board. But I think that, look, I mean, I do think that in the future, like, Donald Trump has proved that by acting in a sort of heavy-handed authoritarian fashion, it is possible to do a bunch of stuff that's not popular. Should should the Democrats? Well, I mean, I do consider it a serious defect of the Obama administration that he was so, like, there was this mindset of like, oh, we need to be bipartisan and we need to constantly reach across the aisle. And like, yeah, I hate all of that. Obviously, I think a major lesson of the Obama administration was we do not go high. Don't do that. Like, and I think that I think Biden improved on that somewhat. There's
How so?
more room for still more improvement. Well, I think Biden like did a number of things that were not,
So we gonna stop it right there. Because if I did this whole interview, I'm not gonna lie. This interview is 2 hours. This was no joke. If I watched and reacted to this whole thing, we'd be here for probably 3 hours. And I have no interest in that because at the end of the day, I want to make the point clear. Liberals don't have a real position because liberals are in a position in their life where they probably don't even have to think about it. To them, this is not what's happening in politics right now is still too detached from their reality for them to really give a damn. So when they actually do come in contact into it for real, or when they actually get thrusted into what it is we have been dealing with for the past 10 to 15 years, they are coming with antiquated information because they were children when all of this started, or they didn't really give a damn about politics, and now they finally do, and they're learning all this information from people like Brianna Joy Gray. Thank God we have people like Brianna Joy Gray. Sis, if you're watching this, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Thank you. Because I don't know if many of us can do what you just did and keep a level head and not like have a nuclear explosion. Just kind of just. Bro, like. That's the video. Peace and love. May the good Lord bless your bones, as the old folks used to say. I'm DJ Pinhead.
It's been corrosive,
Yeah.
strutting down this muddy road, made more friends than foes. Did so many shows, said yes to a lot of them.